Welcome to my Mountain West 2021 football preview video. Now, as most of you know, this is a little bit different than what I usually do. What I usually make is Boise State related football videos. While I'll also, though I will from time to time release football videos that pertain to college football as a whole. But this year, I'm going to be going through every single conference as well, previewing. That's the goal at least. I'm starting off with the Mountain West Conference, home of my Boise State Broncos. I'm going to be previewing every single team in that conference, seeing how each team is going to do overall, ranking them 1 through 6 in each of the conference divisions, the Mountain and the West, predicting conference contenders for the conference championship, and ultimately who I think is going to win the conference championship game. So we'll get started here. I'm going to be going through, like I said, each of these teams. I'm going to give a kind of an overview of the team, but mainly what I'm doing here is I'm just talking about predicted record overall. I'll also let you know what Athlon Sports predicted. That way you can compare both of our records together. And I will let you know, usually I've done this the last few years. This is the first year I'm making YouTube videos. I've done this the last few years. Every single year that I've done it, I've been better than the Athlon Sports on predicting it. Of course, I didn't make videos then, so pick or it doesn't count, and I don't have any picks, so you'll have to take my word on it. But now I have video this year, so hopefully I will be better. Now I will have the evidence this year. Now, that having been said, this is the most difficult football season to predict of any football season, not just for me, but for all analysts. I'm not the only one saying it either. This is the most difficult football season to predict because last year's COVID season wrecked college football. You had teams that played 12 games. You had teams that played 4 games. You had teams that didn't play. You had teams who had starters out. Boise State had a lot of players impacted by that. You had teams that are usually crappy that ended up playing had great seasons, like Ball State. You had teams that are usually perennial top dogs in their conferences that ended up having crappy years, like Penn State. So this is one of the you can't really look at last year and say, okay, that's a blueprint for how they're going to be moving forward. Another thing that's messing things up is that teams, because of the NCAA eligibility referendum, or the extension of eligibility is what I'm trying to say, the COVID extension rule, you have so many more players coming back than would come back. The way I see it, last year, because of the way the season was, last year's COVID season was more of just a practice season for the 2021 season. This is football finally back. This is football really as it should be, and I'm excited to go through and break this down. So having said that, I expect on my predictions here to be wildly off on a few of these teams. I'm hoping overall that I will be consistent and that at the end of the year it will reflect what I'm saying here. But I do believe, and you can put in the comments, I'm sure there'll be lots of disagreement on what I'm saying, but I think that there's teams that could go one way or the other, and I believe that there's a couple teams here that I'm going to be totally off. They're going to either have a way worse year than I'm predicting, or they're going to have a really, really good year. So take what I'm saying with a grain of salt, but let's break into it. So we're going to start off here. We're just do it as Athlon Sports presents it. I think it's alphabetically conference division-wise. Let's start off with Air Force Falcons. So Air Force Falcons last year, of course, sent they sent a significant portion of their team home due to the COVID. The season had been canceled. Mountain West decided to cancel this season. Air Force sent a lot of their players home due to that, and then the Mountain West reinstated their season. And Air Force doesn't usually get to have a redshirt season. You have 4 years and you're done, and that's it. Because of the rules of the academy there, but they took advantage. They allowed they made an exception. They allowed a lot of players to have that extra year to kind of bone up and get better. So when the Mountain West decided to play, Air Force did bring some of their players back. But they didn't bring their full team. They were really playing with a skeleton roster. Of course, they also didn't have Hammond III, who ended up getting ruled ineligible due to off-field issues. So they were dealing with a new quarterback. They were dealing with not having a lot of players on the field, and dealing with the fact that though they had most of their starters, they didn't have any depth there. So it really was a skeleton roster. Despite that, they went 3-3 last year, following an impressive 11-2 season in 2019. But they went 3-3 last year, and they were really close to a much better season. Their biggest loss was to Boise State, but at San Jose State, they only lost 6-17, which of course San Jose State beat Boise State, so that's not a bad loss there for Air Force. And then they only lost by 3 points to Army, so they were within couple possessions there from having a 5-1 record, not a 6-6 record. So Air Force a lot better than giving credit. Athlon Sports is predicting a 7-5 record overall. I think Air Force is going to be one of the top teams, like they were 2 years ago in 2019. I think Air Force is again going to be one of the elite teams in the Mountain West, going to compete for that Mountain Division title there. So I'm predicting a 9-3 record overall. So 5-3 Mountain West. I think that Air Force starts off on a really good streak. We look at some highlights on their roster here. Of course, they play Navy their second game in, and then they open up the Mountain West Conference schedule with Utah State. I think both of those are going to be wins. So I think Air Force is going to go on a 6-game win streak here to start the season. I think they are going to suffer a little bit of a mid-season kind of drop there. I think they're going to drop a game to Boise State, and I think they're also going to lose a game to San Diego State there. They struggled against some of those more difficult teams in the Mountain West in the past. I do think this is a good Air Force team, but I do think without that primary starter there in Hammond, we do have Jose Daniels coming back, who had a decent year last year, but Air Force really has to establish to the pass again, or prove that they can pass the ball before they're going to be one of those teams that can go out there and have an 11-win season like they did in the past. So I think Air Force is going to have a good year, like I said. I think they're going to win against Army. I think they're going to take the Commander-in-Chief's trophy this year. I think they're going to end up dropping a game to Nevada, but finish the season with a win against UNLV for a nice 9-3, 5-3 overall in the Mountain West. Player to look at, impact player for Air Force, we're going to look at Brad Roberts, tailback coming back for Air Force. Had a great year last year, 461 yards rushing, 5 touchdowns. Only going to get better with the rest of the Air Force team really kind of getting back in, getting that full practice in, and actually playing a full season, not just 6 games. I think he'll have a really good year. And I do expect Jose Daniels to come back and have a much better year than he did last year. Whether or not he's a player of the Hammond-type caliber, who was really one of the best quarterbacks that Air Force had in a long time, who could get that run and that passability, I'm not sure. But I am excited to see what Zeke Daniels can do. And like I said, Athlon Sports, overall 7-5. I'm saying 9-3. So hoping for a good year for the Falcons. All right, Boise State Broncos. I'm not going to go too in-depth here. I am a Boise State fan. I do Boise State videos. But I've already produced a Boise State preview video. So I'm just going to do quick overall, and then we'll move on. So Boise State Broncos, 10-2 overall is what I'm predicting, 7-1 Mountain West. They opened up with a tough game against UCF, which I think they'll be able to win that one. I do think they'll suffer losses to Oklahoma State, and they always lose. They always drop a game within the Mountain West. But you know what? As a surprise, I'm not going to say who that Mountain West. I do think Boise State's going to lose to a Mountain West team, but I'm going to move through here, and I'll let you find out when I get to that team who I think is going to be that loss. Now, potential losses with Boise State here. Now, I'm predicting 10-2, but at the same time, I think that this could be a team that could go 10-2, or it could be a team that goes 8-4. I mean, when you look at the schedule, it is one of the hardest Boise State schedules that they've had in a long time. The Mountain West is incredibly good this year. I think they're the best Group of 5 conference. I think they've been the best Group of 5 conference for a while now, but I think they definitely are in competition to have that best Group of 5 slot. Not that the pollsters or the media will give them that because of all of the East Coast bias that goes on. However, I think that there's going to be an incredibly competitive Mountain West team. Great quarterbacks coming down, as we're going to see as we go through here. I mean, we've got 6 quarterbacks that are among the best in the Group of 5 just in the Mountain West. So it's going to be an incredible year, but I think that they're going to struggle. I think it's going to be, or not struggle, but I think there's going to be tough games against UCF, Oklahoma State, Nevada is going to be tough, BYU is going to be tough as always, Air Force is going to be tough, Fresno State, rivalry game, that's always going to be tough. Wyoming, you know, it's always a trap game, and then San Diego State at the end of the year. So you've got several games on this roster that you can't be sleeping on. Really, there's only a couple games here that Boise State can kind of maybe take a foot off the gas pedal, but really there's going to be having to be pedal to metal all the way through. I'm excited to see who gets the start here, Hank Bachmeier or Jack Sears. I'm hoping that it's Hank Bachmeier. I think that it's going to be Hank Bachmeier, but really either quarterback is going to be competitive in the Mountain West. But impact player overall is going to be George Halani. Halani, great running back in 2019, got injured last year against Air Force, so I think he's going to come back, be incredibly strong, have a great season. So moving on here, but just quick, Boise State 10-2, my prediction, and Athlon Sports is predicting 9-4, 7-1. So we agree on the Mountain West overall. The Athlon Sports just thinks that Boise State's going to drop some more out of conference games. I think they think we're going to lose to Oklahoma State, BYU, and UCF. Is what it looks like here. So, all right, moving on. Colorado State Rams, okay? Colorado State Rams, 4-8 record in 2019, 1-3 record last year, so really has been kind of on a downhill slide. Really has been for a while there. Of course, they now have new head coach up in Colorado State. We have Steve Adazio. So not new this year, but new last year. Really didn't have, with the COVID season kind of wrecking, with the COVID coming in wrecking the offseason, didn't really get a chance to establish his offense there. So it's going to be interesting to see if there's a new form of Colorado State. It's a new head coach. I don't think that the 1-3 record is reflective necessarily of him and what he can do with Colorado State Rams. I do, however, think that they're probably going to be one of the bottom tier teams in Mountain West Mountain West this year. I think they have the potential to build as they move forward and get back to being one of those competitive teams in the Mountain West like they have been the last few years. But I think that this year, Athlon Sports projects them going 4-8, 3-5 in the Mountain West. I think it's going to be a little bit worse than that. I think it's going to be 3-9, 2-6. They open up against South Dakota State, who is a tough FCS team. Really, one of those FCS teams that can compete in the FBS level. I think that the potential Colorado State drops that first game. I think they do get a win at SEC team Vanderbilt, but I think that really anybody can go in and win at Vanderbilt. But I'm hoping that Colorado State gets that win at Vanderbilt. But I think it's just going to be a long, tough slog here. I think they potentially have wins against New Mexico and Utah State on their schedule here. But overall, it's just going to be a very tough year for Colorado State. But again, it's a rebuilding year. This really is the first rebuilding year that Steve Adazio is really getting, because the COVID year with only 4 games being played and no really preseason doesn't really count. So this is really the first time he's going to get that building year. So give him a lot of grace. I think we're going to see good things going forward from Colorado State that makes them a little more competitive, gets them out of that bottom tier going forward. So moving on, New Mexico Lobos. So New Mexico Lobos last season went 2-5. Season before that 2-10. They did, however, end the season on a 2-game win streak with wins against Wyoming and Fresno State. So 2 competitive teams in the Mountain West there with Wyoming and Fresno State. So that's good wins on New Mexico. Of course, they had New Mexico with the way that COVID really hit them there, and the way that the state decided to do their regulations, had a lot of issues. I know that the Boise State New Mexico game ended up getting canceled there as well. So they, some team. That's the other thing with COVID, is that COVID hit teams differently based on which states they were in, what kind of regulations were in, what kind of politics those states had. So each state kind of impacted differently how that team was able to practice, how that team was able to apply themselves. So again, not a fair shakeup necessarily for every team last year. However, I don't think that it's going to be a top year for New Mexico. I think that they're still going to be one of those kind of bottom tier Mountain West teams for a while here as they work their way back up. They do have Danny Gonzalez, again, first year last year with the team. And again, I don't think fair reflection of him necessarily. I think we're going to see a little bit different with the new chance for New Mexico to instill his offensive mindset and his defensive mindset, how he wants the team to perform overall. Looking at the team record going forward this year, the Athlon Sports is predicting, sorry, my battery's dying. Athlon Sports is predicting 5-7, 2-6 Mountain West. I think that they're going to have a not quite that good a year. I think it's probably going to be 4-8, 1-7, but definitely an improvement over the 2 wins last year and the 2 wins the year before that. I think they have some wins here, non-conference against Houston Baptist and New Mexico State. I think they can go in and get that in-state rivalry game. And I think they can get a win against UTEP as well. And then I think they can potentially get a win against UNLV. The rest of the schedule, though, I doubt that they're going to be able to go out and perform quite as they want to. Impact player for New Mexico. Oh, I just realized I didn't do an impact player for Colorado State. I'll go back and do that in a second here. But impact player for New Mexico is going to be their quarterback, Terry Wilson, transfer from Kentucky. Graduate transfer from Kentucky. Terry Wilson, who had 1,187 yards with 7 touchdowns and 4 interceptions in 2020, and had a 17-8 career record as a Wildcat starter. So this is a quarterback who was competitive, who was a starter, who's come over here to New Mexico. I'm not sure why he made that decision. I didn't do much research there into the reasons that made him transfer over from an SEC team to New Mexico. But quarterback of his caliber coming in might have a chance to compete. Might even see New Mexico go better than the record I predicted with a quarterback of that caliber. We'll see. He will be an interesting player to watch. He's going to be my impact player. Just going back to Colorado State real quickly, they do have an excellent NFL talent on their roster. Their tight end Trey McBride, who's had an impressive year last year with a 330 yards receiving and 4 touchdowns. I think that he's going to have another impressive year and definitely going to be a top Mountain West draft pick. All right, so moving on from New Mexico, we're going to go on to Utah State Aggies now. So Utah State, not a good year last year, 1-5, still trying to find that starting quarterback, that quarterback who can lead them to the levels of success they saw under Jordan Love. Again, under 2019, though, they had a 7-6 record, so really, again, downhill trend after Jordan Love's departure. Logan Bonner, the transfer from Arkansas State, looks like he could be an impressive starter. He's going to be my impact player for Arkansas State. Like I said, quarterbacks all over the Mountain West. We've got great quarterbacks, we've got intriguing quarterbacks, and we have quarterbacks who are working their way up there. So very quarterback-heavy league, one that's going to be very, very competitive for passing defenses to watch out for. Very exciting to watch. Mountain West in the past, I think, has been a very running back-centric kind of conference. There were the great running backs coming out of. Not that the quarterbacks haven't been good, but this year I think they're going to be a lot more emphasis on the passing game across the board. Of course, Boise State bringing in a air raid offensive coordinator in Tim Plow. But I think across the league, you're going to see great quarterback play, so it's going to be exciting to watch. But just looking at their schedule here, Athlon Sports is predicting 4-8, 2-6. I think they're probably going to go a little better than that, 5-7, 4-4 Mountain West. So I think they're going to have a little bit of improvement, especially with the Arkansas State transfer, who was able to throw for 1,863 yards and 18 touchdowns for Arkansas State last year. I do believe they're going to drop their non-conference game to Washington State, but I think they'll get a win against North Dakota before they get into a really tough Mountain West matchup with Air Force, Boise State, and BYU back-to-back-to-back. I think that's probably going to be a 3-game skid for them before they recover a little bit against UNLV and Colorado State. And then they got some intriguing games here against Hawaii and Wyoming on their schedule, and San Jose State. I think they're going to drop quite a few of those, maybe get some wins against New Mexico State and New Mexico. Finish that season 4-4 for a pretty decent year for a team that's still trying to get their feet under them after losing a perennial starter like Jordan Love. And also, of course, this is Blake Anderson, new head coach, first season, so really a rebuilding year for Utah State, but one that I think that they can do better than they did last year and even the year before that necessarily, that at least had that potential, but at least better than they did last year. And I think going forward, we're going to see Utah State start returning back to being one of those at least middle of the pack Mountain West teams, not quite the bottom of the tier like they were last year. Okay, Wyoming Cowboys. This is an exciting one. Craig Bohl, I think, is an outstanding coach for Wyoming. He does so much with really, it is so little. I mean, he came in with so little, and he brought in great talent. He's been able to develop great talent with Wyoming, of course, having his former quarterback is quarterbacking for the Buffalo Bills now. So he has a great Josh Allen. So he is a great coach who's able to develop great talent and do a lot with little, and I think he's going to have a better year than he did last year with 2-4. Of course, he saw their starting quarterback Sean Chambers go down with an injury, who has looked really good when he's been in. When he's been able to play, I thought in 2019 he looked really good, and then last year I thought he looked good before his injury. So I think Sean Chambers is one of those quarterbacks who could compete for top 6 quarterback or top 5 quarterback in the Mountain West. He really is an outstanding quarterback who can run and pass, assuming he comes back from the injury at top proficiency. They also have an outstanding running back in I can't really say his first name, but his Valadez is the last name. So with an outstanding running back, outstanding quarterback combo, I think they're going to do much better than they did last year, 2-4. Now, Athlon Sports is predicting 8-4. I'm predicting 7-5. We both agree, Athlon and I agree on 4-4 Mountain West. I think that they're probably not going to do quite as well in the non-conference schedule as Athlon Sports is predicting, but just because they do play Ball State here, and Athlon Sports is, I'm sure, predicting Ball State a win for Wyoming Cowboys. Ball State, now, it could have been a fluke, like I was talking about. Teams that have been bad in the past having great seasons, but San Jose State was an outstanding team last year. They really were, regardless of COVID, they have one of the top quarterbacks in the Mountain West there on their team. We'll analyze them when we get to them. But San Jose State is an excellent Mountain West team, was able to beat my Boise State Broncos, despite some challenges and despite the fact that Boise State was dealing with some issues there. Boise State overall had a pretty healthy roster besides their starting running back being out. I do a video on the Boise State loss to San Jose State. You can find on my channel. A couple of San Jose State fans have given it thumbs up or said that it was pretty good overall, so I think I was pretty fair in my analysis. But San Jose State, outstanding team, and I totally forgot where I was going with that. Anyhow, San Jose State, Ball State. San Jose State, outstanding team. Ball State was able to go beat them in the bowl game. Now, I know the bowl season is, you analyze that completely differently. Teams, it has a lot to do with momentum, with what teams decide they want to be playing for, really, like how motivated they are to be there, how excited they are. Did San Jose State feel like they were jilted by not getting a better bowl? Does Ball State feel like they are excited to be there because that was the best bowl they could get? So there's some different things there, but Ball State went out and beat them, and I don't think that was necessarily a fluke. I think Ball State's going to be a lot better than a lot of analysts analysts are predicting. I think they'll get that win against Wyoming Cowboys. So that is going to be one of those drops. But I think Wyoming Cowboys here, I think they will drop some games to Air Force and Fresno State. But I think the big win here, I think they're going to go the last 5 games of the season. They play San Jose State, which is going to be close. But I think San Jose State will pull off the win. Then they play Colorado State, Boise State, Utah State, and Hawaii. And I think that they're going to win 3 of those 4 games. And I think that they're going to beat Boise State this year. Every year, Boise State drops a game that they shouldn't. Every year, Boise State has a game on their roster that they should go out there and they should win, and they end up losing. Whether that's to Wyoming, who they've done that to in the past, whether that's to San Diego State, whether that's to New Mexico. I mean, who loses to New Mexico at home? Boise State has had, even though they've been one of the top, if not the top team in the Mountain West over the last few years, they've always had a game that they've dropped that they really should go out there and win. And I think Wyoming is going to be that team this year. I think that they have the potential with Sean Chambers, with Valladay being the running back there. But really overall, I think it's Craig Bohl. Craig Bohl is one of the great coaching minds in the NCAA. Or at least in the Mountain West, definitely Group of 5. And he has the ability, the coaching ability to go out there. The Boise State game's going to be circled. Wyoming's almost that game has almost had a rivalry type feel. I mean, last year, Boise State only beat Wyoming 9-17. There were some weather issues. There were some team issues overall. But really, they only beat them 9-17 last year, and they didn't even have Sean Chambers. So I think Wyoming is going to be able to I think that they might have Boise State's number this year, even though it is at home with Boise State. Wyoming's going to be incredibly motivated to go in there. Do I think that Boise State is a better football team than Wyoming? I do, but Boise State always drops a year that they shouldn't. Boise State might be peaking past Wyoming with San Diego State being played the next week there, and I think that there's a chance, especially with the coaching shakeup for Boise State and trying to implement a new scheme, that they go in there and they drop this game to Wyoming. So 7-5 predicted overall, 4-4 Mountain West, but I think they might have an exciting win there against Boise State, which will really boost the way that season overall is perceived for the Wyoming Cowboys. So Fresno State Bulldogs. Okay. And I know I'm at 20 minutes. This is going to be one of my longer videos, and we only just got into the west side of the Mountain West, so I apologize for that. But you know what? To give these teams justice, you really got to give them a little bit of time. I apologize, but we're going to move forward here. So Fresno State Bulldogs, a team that has had high hopes in the past, a team that has competed for and won Mountain West championships in the past. They went 3-3 last year, which really, considering a lot of things, was not that bad a record. They had a decently close loss to Hawaii, where they only lost by 15 points. They had a really close loss to Nevada, where they only lost by 11 points. And they had a really close loss to New Mexico. Now, that New Mexico loss is pretty severe. Like I said, you really shouldn't be losing to New Mexico if you're in the Mountain West. But it was only a 10-point loss, and really, Fresno State really didn't have anything to play for. New Mexico was very motivated to get some wins coming down the end of the stretch there, so there's some things that could be seen. So I think that Fresno State is going to have a better year than they did last year and the year before that, going 4-8 in 2019. I think that Jake Hurney and Ronnie Rivers, impact players for the Fresno State right there. I think that they're both players that can come out and compete really well for their team. Athlon Sports is predicting 7-5, 5-3 Mountain West. I think that they're going to be slightly better than that. I think it's going to be 8-4, 5-3 for the Fresno State Bulldogs. I think they're going to have an incredible first half of the season. And I think Fresno State fans will say this too. I think that they'll drop that game to Oregon. I think that's probably pretty much accepted. But I think they're going to get a win against Connecticut. I think they're going to win against Cal Poly. And I think UCLA is vulnerable enough. I think Fresno State is good enough with Caleb DeBoer coming in with last year with his first year. He's been able to establish himself again. I said Jake Hurney and Ronnie Rivers, I think, are incredible players for their team. And they also return all 3 starting wide receivers. And they have a bunch of players back, 9 players back on defense. So 18 players back overall, starters back overall. Of course, more players than that, but 18 starters back overall. I really think that this is going to be a pretty good Fresno State team. So I think that they can go into UCLA and get that win. I think that it'll be an exciting game to watch. Definitely one of my top Mountain West, non-conference Mountain West games I got scheduled on the calendar. I'm excited to watch that game. I think they'll get a win against UNLV, Hawaii, and Wyoming. I do think they're going to drop that game to Nevada, and just because Nevada is one of the best teams in the Mountain West this year, I think, and I will get to them soon here, but I think that they will drop the game to Nevada. I think they'll get a win against San Diego State. Going into Boise, It's going to be really close. It is a rivalry game, but it's on the blue. It's a rivalry game. Boise State's going to be prepared. It's not a trap game like Wyoming is, and Boise State, I think, is going to be able to go out there and get that win. But then I think that they'll pick up a win against New Mexico and potentially drop a game to San Jose State. But I think that this is a Fresno State team that is going to be a couple of close wins away from an even better record than 8-4. I think they could even potentially win that San Jose State game at the end of the year, though I am going to be predicting right now that it's going to be a loss. But I think this is going to be a very exciting Fresno State team to watch, at least going to be a improvement over the last couple of years as Fresno State tries to establish themselves as one of the top dogs, Fresno State Bulldogs, as one of the top dogs in the Mountain West. All right, Hawaii Rainbow Warriors. This is a team that I'm very happy that Boise State does not have to play this year, because Hawaii, I think, is going to be excellent. 5-4 record last year, 10-5 record before that. They are, of course, They of course had to replace their great quarterback from a few years ago. But they have Chevan Cordero, who is an outstanding quarterback. He played really well against Boise State last year with over 393 passing yards in that game. So he's my impact player for Hawaii. I think that Hawaii has the potential. I really, really like Todd Graham coaching at this school. Coming in first year, of course, they lost their outstanding coach from a couple years ago, but I think Todd Graham can come and do some great things with Hawaii. Hawaii is not the bottom feeder of the Mountain West anymore like it has been over the last, well, and not actually over the last few years, because they've actually been pretty good the last few years, but they have been in the past, at least since that incredible 2017 that, of course, was able to go and beat Boise State, win them well, it wasn't the Mountain West at the time, was it? It was the MAC, not MAC, it was the the WAC, Western Athletic Conference. Sorry, total brain blank, haven't thought about them in a long time. But I think that they aren't going to be a bottom feeder of the mountain. They aren't a bottom feeder of the Mountain West anymore like they have been in the past. This is a Hawaii team that's been able to go out and recruit. This is a Hawaii team that's brought in good coaches and they have great players like Cordero at their school that can go out there and compete. They're exciting to watch. I'm excited to see what they can do this year, and I'm especially excited with the fact that Boise State doesn't have to play them on their regular season schedule. I think that unlike Fresno State, I think that they will drop that game to UCLA to start off. Just first game of the season, I think that they're going to still be establishing themselves a little bit, but I think that they can go out and win against Oregon State on the road there. I think that that's a game that they can definitely go out and win. Drop a game to San Jose State, win against New Mexico State, a couple of losses to Fresno and Nevada along the way, but then I think Hawaii is going to finish off really strong, finish off the last 6 games of the season, 6-game winning streak with wins against New Mexico, Utah State, San Jose State, UNLV, Colorado State, and Wyoming. I think that this is going to be a Hawaii team that is going to come out really strong towards the end of the year, get a nice bowl matchup. Now, so you heard my prediction right now, 9-4, 5-3. That is completely opposite to what Athlon Sports is saying. Athlon Sports thinks that they're going to go 6-7, 3-5 Mountain West. So this is one of those ones where we really differ on our predictions overall. And like I said, hard season to predict. Athlon Sports having the same issues that I am, so we'll see who's right at the end of the year. Hopefully, I'm hoping that Hawaii goes out, represents the conference well, and has a great season. All right, moving on, Nevada Wolfpack. All right, one of those rivalry games, of course, for Boise State. It is a return of rivalry season, next 2 years at least for Boise State. Of course, with the rotating schedule, the way that you play different teams outside of your conference every year, and which has really knocked off those great rivalry games. But Boise State back having those rivalry games with Nevada, Fresno State, San Diego State. Really exciting to see those return from the West Division. So Nevada here, Nevada Wolfpack. Athlon Sports is not as high on the Wolfpack as I am. Now, last year they went 7-2 and 7-6 the year before that. But last year, 7-2. Had a great campaign in the Mountain West. Almost got to compete in that Mountain West championship game, but unfortunately dropped for them at least, and dropped that game to San Jose State, only by 10 points though. This is a Nevada team that has one of the best quarterbacks in the Mountain West, in Carson Strong, an outstanding quarterback there, and they also have one of the best running backs in the Mountain West with Tua Taioa. I'm sorry, I'm terrible with Pacific Islander names, but you know who I'm talking about, number 35 there, had 675 yards rushing. When you look at Athlon Sports, when they rate the different sections, when they rate their unit rankings, they actually have Nevada here as having the best quarterback in the Mountain West. They think that Carson Strong is the best quarterback in the Mountain West, and I think that he might be one of the best though I think that San Jose State quarterback Nick Starkel is probably, in my opinion, the best quarterback in the Mountain West. I think that Carson Strong is definitely in competition there. I am predicting, so this is a Nevada team that is not like past Nevada teams, even though those past Nevada teams have been competitive. This is a Nevada team that is, I think, back into one of the elite statuses in the Mountain West. This is one of the best Nevada teams I've seen since the Colin Kaepernick years. I'm excited to see what they can do. I think that they're going to go 9-3, 6-2 overall. So Athlon Sports predicting 8-5, 6-2. I think they're going to go 9-3, 6-2. I think it's going to be a very exciting year. I think that they're going to go win a game at California, and then I think they're going to. I think they're capable of beating Kansas State. I do think Kansas State's going to win that game, but I think that they have potential here. If they can win the game against Kansas State, they have a potential to come into that Boise State game. Of course, at Boise State, they have potential to be ranked coming into that game. Better potential, I think, even than Boise State, who I think is probably going to drop the game to Oklahoma State before the Nevada matchup. So Nevada, a chance to really set. I mean, if they can win that game against Kansas State and win the game against Boise State, I mean, they will have a chance here to put together a all-time great season for the Nevada Wolfpack. It'll be exciting to see what they can do. But I think they are going to drop that game to Boise State, but then I think they're going to go on a 4-game win streak with wins against New Mexico State, Hawaii, Fresno State, and UNLV. I do think that the quarterback battle is going to be intense in that San Jose State game, but like I said, I just think that Nick Starkel is the best quarterback in Mountain West right now, and even better, I mean, Hank Bachmeier and Jack Sears are great quarterbacks for Boise State, but Nick Starkel is one of the best quarterbacks, and I think the best quarterback in Mountain West. Really showed it last year with a strong performance all season, and even against that game up against Boise State. So this is going to be really a quarterback battle between San Jose State and Nevada, and I think San Jose State is going to get the edge, but it's going to be a really close Fort matchup. Might even go to overtime. I mean, that is probably at least. So if I take off my Boise State hat for a second, I think that is the top Mountain West matchup, or at least the one I'm most excited from outside of the Boise State matchup schedule. It's going to be incredible to see what happens there. Then I think, even though they dropped that game, San Jose State, I think they finished the season strong with wins against San Jose State, Air Force, and Colorado State. So a season that could be very, very promising, very exciting for Nevada. We'll get to see what happens there. If they win that game against San Jose State, I think that we'll see a potential rematch against Boise State or whoever the Mountain Division winner is. But we could potentially see, if Boise State performs as I'm predicting that they will, I think that we could see a potential rematch there, which would be exciting. Get 2 Nevada games in 1 year has never happened before, so it would be, well, I think it did happen in the FCS years, but at least in the FBS it hasn't happened. It would be exciting to see that rematch, Boise State versus Nevada. It would be exciting to have that game happen twice. But they do have to go out and win against San Jose State, and like I said, I'm not sure that that's going to happen. San Diego State Aztecs, all right? So this is a team that has been struggling the last few years. It's a team that really hasn't been performing up to the standards. It's certainly not the San Diego State team that has beaten Boise State in the past. So they last year 4-4. Now 2019 they did go 10-3. So they had a great season in 2019. So I'm going to backtrack a little bit on that. They had a great season in 2019, but they did go 4-4 last year, and they are replacing their quarterback again. They're having to replace another starting quarterback. Now Brad Hoke is a great coach for San Diego State, who again has shown success in that 2019 season. But I do think that this is going to be a rough year for San Diego State. I just don't see the talent. They do return a lot of talent on defense, but on offensive side, they only return 5 starters. It will really end up happening with what we see out of whoever the starting quarterback ends up being for San Diego State. Right now, it's a pretty fierce battle between Jalen Maiden and Lucas Johnson. We'll have to see what happens there, but I really don't think that this is going to be San Diego State's year. I think it's going to be a little bit of a rebuilding year. Athlon Sports agrees in that sense. They're predicting a 7-5, 5-3 overall. I'm predicting 6-6, 4-4. I think they will have some success non-conference wise. I think they can go out and get a win against Arizona here, and potentially play Utah close. So I do think Utah's going to win that game. And the way Utah is this year might even be a big win for Utah there. But after that, I think that San Diego State will recover with some wins against New Mexico and Air Force. But I think they're going to drop a lot of games here down this road against Fresno State, Hawaii, Nevada, and Boise State. I just think that this is not San Diego State's year, but I do think that going forward, we're going to see improvement out of the Aztecs, even though this year might not be this year in my estimate at least. San Jose State Spartans. Athlon Sports is pretty high on them overall. They're not high on any Mountain West team, but comparatively, they're pretty high on. I use Athlon Sports because the format is nice, with the predictions that they give, and then there's space for me to write in my predictions. But as far as what they predict, they're very American Athletic Conference bias, very heavy East Coast bias overall. So not my favorite analysis center, but I do like the format of their magazines. Sorry, a little sidetrack there. San Jose, that's probably why my videos are always so long. I'm already at 33 minutes. So San Jose State Spartans, again, like I said, I think the best quarterback in the Mountain West was Nick Starkel. He is my impact player for San Jose State there. Oh, sorry, I forgot to give an impact player for San Diego State. Impact player for San Diego State, Greg Bell, had a great year last year with 637 yards rushing. So I think he can come back and do some great things for them. I think I remember right that this was before Greg Bell's injury, they actually had four straight 100-yard games. So this is a running back who can go out there and get it done. And he's, I think, with the quarterback battle there and the replacements coming in, he's going to be the guy that San Diego State pins their hat on. I think he's going to see a ton of reps, and they're going to kind of run off of him. So as he goes, I think the season will go, and we'll just see if he's able to live up to the standards of San Diego State. Though, like I said, I'm predicting 6-6 overall. Sorry, back to San Jose State. So Nick Starkel, impact player for San Jose State. I think he's going to be the best quarterback, at least preseason-wise. We'll see what shakes up at the end of the year. But it's really a matter of degrees. When I say the best quarterback in the Mountain West, I'm not saying that the other quarterbacks aren't close to him. They are. I mean, it is a matter of inches between Nick Starkel and Carson Strong and Hank Bachmeier and even Jack Sears, who, like I'm saying, I don't think he's going to be the starter for Boise State, but I think Boise State could have two of the top two quarterbacks in the Mountain West on their team. But Jack Sears, Hank Bachmeier, Nick Starkel, Carson Strong, Jake Hayner, and Sean Chambers, among others. I mean, it's going to be a really strong year for Mountain West quarterbacks. So San Jose State here. So I keep getting sidetracked. I don't know why, but I keep getting sidetracked. Last year, 7-1, 6-0 Mountain West record, outstanding. Of course, dropping that game to Ball State, but like I've already talked about, there could have been other issues that fed into that, or the factors that fed into that. This is coming off of 2019 season when they only went 5-7. So this is one of those teams where you have to ask, okay, was it a team that they were just really good? And find that and that's who they are now, or is it a team that took advantage of some of the COVID situations, other teams not being as prepared, and just went out and had a great year, but is that a fluke? I don't think so. I've watched Nick Starkel play. I've watched San Jose State play for a while. I'm not a San Jose State fan per se, but with my uncle being athletic director there for a while, I do follow them. I started following once he became the athletic director there. So it's a team that I've watched consistently, watched most of their games throughout the years. And I think that this is a team that has been really close to success for a while now. And I think that Nick Starkel is the quarterback that can get them there. He is a quarterback who played great in 2019, and it wasn't his fault that the team ended up not performing as well as he was. And I think that they built a team around him. They returned 20 starters overall. So this is a team that is complete. It's a team that's going to be pretty much identical to last year as far as abilities go. And it's a team that's built themselves around Nick Starkel that can go out and do great things. Athlon Sports is only predicting 9-3 and 6-2. I am predicting 11-1, 8-0. I think this is going to be one of the all-time great San Jose State teams. I think they will drop a game to USC just because that's a really tough matchup. I don't know if I think it's a team that's capable of beating USC, but I go through every team and I predict who's going to beat who. I think USC wins that game, but I think this is a San Jose State team who could go out there and win that game. And then I think that they're going to run the table and we'll see what happens in the Mountain West Championship game. I'm very excited about the San Jose State Spartans this year. Okay, so wrapping up here, last team in the Mountain West. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to hit the last team here, UNLV. Then I'm going to go back to just the overall. I'm going to do a real quick summary of how I think things are going to shake out. I'm going to give a prediction on the Mountain West Championship game, who I think is going to be in there, and then who I think is going to be the winner, who's going to be representing the conference in whatever bowl game ends up being there for the Mountain West. Whether that's a group of six, New Year's Six Bowl, or whether that's the bowl game in California. Okay, UNLV Rebels. So 0-6 record last year, down from a 4-8 record in 2019. I think this is going to be a really disappointing season for UNLV again. 1-11, 0-8 is what I'm predicting. Athlon Sports thinks it's going to be slightly better. They're predicting 2-10, 1-7. I think that they'll get that win against Eastern Washington to start the season, and then it's just going to be a real rough trek from there with losses in pretty much all the rest of their losses in the rest of their games. Impact player Justin Rogers is, if you had to pick an impact player for UNLV, I'd have to pick him. Highly touted transfer from TCU, who got into just 2 games last year and was able to complete for 161 yards. The fact that he was recruited to TCU means he's got to have some talent, that being a Big 12 team. So it's interesting to see what he can do at UNLV, if he can win that starting spot and if he can get those wins for UNLV. I just don't think it's going to end up working out. I think it's going to be probably another disappointing season for the Running Rebels there. Okay. So real quick here, wrapping up. So So I've given you my overall predictions and how this is going to shake out. But what does this mean overall? How does this rank up? So Athlon Sports predicts the order of finish being in the West, in the Mountain Division, Boise State, Wyoming, Air Force, Colorado State, New Mexico, Utah State. I disagree pretty significantly in the Mountain Division. I think that's going to be Boise State number 1. I agree on that. But I think Air Force is going to come in 2nd. I think Wyoming Cowboys is going to come in 3rd. Utah State's going to come in 4th, Colorado State's going to come in 5th, and New Mexico is going to come in 6th. All right, and then the West Division, exciting season here for the West Division, one of the most challenging, I think, in the Mountain West. I think the West Division is probably going to be the strongest overall average throughout, and unfortunately, Boise State's got to play the toughest teams in that division. So they're predicting Nevada number 1, San Jose State number 2, Fresno State number 3, San Diego State number 4, Hawaii number 5, and UNLV number 6. I think it's going to be slightly different. I think it's going to be Spartans number 1, Wolfpack number 2, Bulldogs number 3, Rainbow Warriors number 4, Aztecs number 5, and then the Running Rebels at number 6 overall. Sorry, the UNLV Rebels there at number 6 overall. So slightly different. So they're predicting, what the Athlon Sports is predicting is Boise State winning against Nevada in the Mountain West Championship. I am actually predicting that it's going to be Boise State against San Jose State in the Mountain West Championship. I think that this year Boise State comes out more motivated, comes out with a team that's more complete, assuming that they're healthy at the end of the season with their healthy quarterbacks and running backs, key units there for Boise State, of course. I think that Andy Avalos in his first year is going to be able to go out there and get that win. So I do believe that Boise State's going to get that win over San Jose State, but I think that both teams are going to play very competitive. But I think that Boise State's going to be hungry. They're going to be looking for revenge. They're going to be motivated, and they're going to be a really good team, much better than last year and much closer to that 2019 team that went out and did so well in the Mountain West overall. So I think it's going to be a very exciting season for all the teams in the Mountain West. I'm excited to see what happens. And again, I think that I could be completely off on some of these guys. I think that some teams go out there and surprise me. Probably the team that I'm the most skeptical about my own predictions overall is San Diego State. I think that's a team that could go out there and end up having a much better season than I'm predicting. As far as teams that I am most skeptical about succeeding, that like I have predicted, probably going to be my Boise State Broncos. That's one of those teams that I think could end up being a big disappointment for Broncos in a rebuilding year, just trying to work things out, and a very tough schedule with Andy Avalos' first year. I do think that Andy Avalos has the skill and potential, like I've said before, to get Boise State to being one of the top teams in the Group of 5 again. And I think that it starts this season, but, you know, a lot of shakeup, a lot of breakdown. I'm not sure. Who knows? So overall, going to be Boise State versus San Jose State is my prediction. And make sure you keep like and subscribe to my channel. I'm going to be trying to make Mountain West preview type videos every week, previewing top games in the Mountain West. So it's not just going to be Boise State stuff. I'm also going to be making a video once I've gone through all the conferences. I'm going to make a video where I predict who's going to be playing in the playoffs, who's going to be the Group of 5 representative to the New Year's 6, and I'm going to give my reasoning overall, those top picks. Heads up, there are going to be a couple of Mountain West teams. A couple of Mountain West teams in the running there for that New Year's 6, according to my prediction. So it'll be exciting to see what happens there. But thank you for watching my video. One of my longer videos overall, but definitely worth it, I think, in previewing an outstanding, exciting Mountain West season. If you're not already a member of the Mountain West Conference Alliance, Mountain West Football Alliance is a different group, but if you're not already a member of the Mountain West Conference Alliance, it's a new Facebook group that I've started just about a week ago. We already have over 300 members. I'm inviting all the top Facebook groups from all 12 Mountain West teams. Of course, I'm an admin for Bronco Nation, which is the largest Boise State Facebook group. I'm inviting all the top Facebook group admins from all the top 12 teams to join, and from all the 12 Mountain West teams to join, and we're going to make a 12 admin team from representatives from every Mountain West Facebook group, every top Mountain West Facebook group. It's going to be a really exciting opportunity, really exciting place to discuss Mountain West issues, discuss upcoming matchups, to talk about football, basketball, every single Mountain West athletic activity. It's going to be a really exciting place to really convene together and represent the best Mountain West conference, the best Group of 5 conference in the FBS. So make sure, if you're not a member, make sure you go and join that. And if you happen to be a Boise State fan watching this and you're not a member of the Bronco Nation Updates group, make sure you go and like that video, like that Facebook group as well. Stumbling down the finish a little bit like a couple Mountain West teams I think will. But thank you for watching my video, and as always, go Big Blue.